everyone, welcome to my channel 12 with Tarot. This is PU and it's really nice to be shooting my second video and my first official video because the first one was just an introduction. So today what I've planned is that I want to discuss what reading intuitively looks like. When I first started tarot, and the reason behind that is that when I first started tarot, I thought that there were like one of two types of readers. One who just looked at the card and came up with a story, and they were obviously the gifted woo perfection people, and there were the people who would know the meaning and every card had a standard interpretation and they would align that to your situation and answer your question. Now, nothing is right or wrong. The way I think a reader reads is their skill and how much of them comes into it. But because my purpose was a lot of self-work and personal work and deep personal work, so I wanted to be an intuitive reader. I had, like I mentioned before in my previous video, I had this very strong idea that I wanted to be an intuitive reader. So I was very, very particular about not trying to learn the meanings from a guidebook by rote. I would read them. I would try to look at the image and place, ideas, words, emotions that leapt out at me. But I would not try to just memorize the meaning. And until date also, I would say I am not very familiar with the zodiacal associations or the astrological associations because I am also on my journey. I'm just chronicling it as I go. So I wanted to sit and discuss how I look at a non-Rider-Waite-Smith or a Rider-Waite-Smith inspired deck, I would say, and read it. So I've got with me over here the Mystical Moments Tarot, and I am gonna go over it card by card and just very quickly tell you what stands out to me the most. And it's not always the obvious meaning, but it's what catches my eye and what stands out to me in the particular card. And hopefully that will help people who are struggling to sort of find an association between an image and the artwork. So oftentimes what I do is, the first time I look at a non-Rider-Waite-Smith deck, I gloss over what the card is. So an example here is, an easy example here is from Mystical Moments. This is the Fool card, and I'm covering the card title for a reason. Now this to me is a pretty Rider-Waite-Smith aligned Fool card, though obviously we have some thought influence with the alligator, the crocodile, one of the two. But to me this yellow flower looks like temptation. She has a flower in her hand which is also yellow. She has her bird companion, but the part she's on is literally the belly of this large creature, and she's in this lush garden. It looks almost like too good to be true, right? So which is very different from, let's say, if I picked a very Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and for that I have, well, I've put this in order so it'll be easy for me to compare card wise. I have this, my third. This is the copy that I unlocked using Lisa's Unlocking Your Tarot, Finding Your Keys book, and I used some of her keywords. I used some of her secondary keywords sometimes and some of my own when they made sense. I wrote them into the artwork. I did not even have this deck until I did this exercise because it was almost too modern for me, but as an example it works really well. So in the first card here, first of all, the art style between these two decks is hugely different. This is clean line work, this is collage art, and this is lush and green, and this is more simple and to the point, and it's a very good beginner deck, whereas this, I guess there's a lot to take in the image, but that's why this makes for such a good intuitive reader, because you'll find yourself sinking into the image. Now, personally speaking, I know a lot of people sink into the image and do path work. I haven't quite done that yet. I've done that very sparingly, I should say, but at the same time, I guess two different types of artworks can give off very different feeling, a very different feeling for the very same card as the reader, right? So a good example, another for the second card, this is the Magician card. Now here I see a woman who is very soft, softer than how I usually see the Magician. She has a wand, she has a swan with her, she is surrounded by beautiful flowers and lots of greenery, and her proverbial house is a hat. So the signs of the Magician are there because she's coming out of a hat, but I see her as literally channeling cosmic energy to create something into the physical world. And I see that in a more gentle way than, let's say, I see this figure who is very masculine, who's, his posture, his presence in the card is very dominating, like his physical stance, whereas her physical stance is much more soft. She's not looking directly at you. So that would make my reading very different for these two cards. Then the next card is the High Priestess. Again, for me, I see her half behind the veil, and I see the ocean in front of her as opposed to behind the veil. There is a conch shell if you look closely. I don't know if my camera is going to focus, but yeah, there is that conch shell around her neck and the moon. So it has all the elements of the High Priestess, everything you need to read the High Priestess as a deck, but it lacks, there is again this sort of, this artwork invokes this sense of, tenderness, whereas I see her as very reserved. Her voice is very quiet. She is a listener. She's not much of a speaker, but she holds a lot of wisdom within herself. Whereas if I compare it to the This Might Hurt, then this High Priestess is, to me, much bolder. She is confident in her body. She is confident in her knowledge. She is sitting, her posture is straight, and she is sitting on the moon. There are mushrooms growing at her feet. So this is a much more bold image and a bold version of the High Priestess. So the High Priestess is like, girl, listen, as opposed to, let me invite you. This card to me says, let me invite you into yourself. And this card to me says, girl, listen. So, and then we come to the Priestess, and you'll see the Empress, and you'll see me probably repeating the same ideas again. I'll go through all the majors, and if you want the whole deck, let me know. But I just wanted to explore this idea, so I'll be going through all the majors. So coming back to the Empress, you see such lushness. You see the baby growing in her womb. You see her as, she is a flower. She is what looks like a hibiscus to me. She is literally a flower. She is a garden. Her abundance and her creativity are something that does not need to be stated because the evidence is in front of you. But again, she is, she's stately. Whereas this Empress from This Might Hurt is, look at the expression in her eyes. She's like do not mess with me right now. Like, she is less warm and more someone who I would go to this person when I wanted like real talk. I would go to her when I wanted real talk. And whereas the Mystical Moments Empress, I would go to her when I wanted somebody to listen to me and hold me. So for me, these are the two differences between these cards. Then we come to the Emperor. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because Mystical Moments has two Emperors and I keep both in my deck for a reason. So Mystical Moments, as you well know, it's a very popular deck. It's been shown on YouTube a crazy amount. It does not stop being amazing, but it has a female representation on all the cards that are traditionally masculine, and I mostly chose, for the sake of the balance of my deck, the masculine representations. But for the Emperor, I had to keep both, because here in the Emperor, in this Emperor, I should say, you see a very stately man. The branches as his mustache, his large mustache, the castle on his head. And you see the flowers, which the guidebooks say are for compassion. He gives a very distant vibe. He's not that approachable, but he's definitely someone who's strategic. He has a 1,000-yard stare, which, you know, makes me feel as though he's looking into the distance and contemplating. And this Empress is clearly, for me, a shadow interpretation of the Empress, where she's basically got people connected to her by strings. So she's the puppet master. So this talks to me about the control of an emperor, and about how authority, while is amazing because it gives you structure and stability, can also be stifling in the wrong circumstances. So, and in This Might Hurt Emperor, I mean, just look at his stance. He is literally in Superman pose. The ram in front of him is chilling. This is the boss. There's just no other way to put it for me. He is the boss. He is the man. He's got the vibe. Now, the next card for Mystical Moments is one of my favorite Hierophants. It is so gentle. It is so, like, I see that as the moon. Okay, there's a huge owl trying to teach you its wisdom, teach this little girl its wisdom on this tree. That's maybe a very literal interpretation of the image, but that's how I see it. And I see that, you know, here knowledge is something that is being offered to you, but it's not something that's being put on you, or something that is being gate kept, I should say. Whereas in This Might Hurt Hierophant, it is very much a man blocking the path between these two pillars, right? And he's standing with the keys emblazoned on his chest. So he's holding the papal staff. He is wearing his crown. He is definitely not approachable. He's not somebody I would feel comfortable walking up to and asking for advice. And he is also, even though his hand symbolizes peace, the supplicants are still below him in stature, if that's the right way to put it. So they're still, you know, he still carries that authority. And that makes these two cards so wildly different, where both are about learning, accessing knowledge, maybe more in the traditional sense. But this one gives me a little more leeway to play with, whereas this one is very set in that meaning. The next card is the Lovers. The Lovers is very interesting. It's a collage of a bird and a man and a woman. And the Lovers here is also a very romantic, sort of involved love. Hopefully YouTube does not mind nudity. I'm gonna cover that up. But the Lovers, for me, is a choice, a commitment that changes the trajectory of your life. And both of these Lovers actually show me more the commitment side, but they don't show me the fact that it's a choice. It's like romantic, but I'd like to see the choice more in the Lovers. So these two are probably very similar in their vibe to me. In fact, here the angel with the arrow makes it a little more obviously loving, where here it's like two very different people choosing each other. So again, there's more room to play with, you know, whereas this is very locked into its RWS meaning. Now the next one is again super interesting. This is the Chariot. This was the first Chariot that I got, which was a snail. Now this is a concept that has been done multiple times since Mystical Moments came out, but this was my first encounter with a Chariot being a snail. And in that, I took till then the Chariot to have a certain element of speed, but that's not what it's about. It's an element of will. It's an element of determination, which is not necessarily demonstrated by speed, right? So for me, here was the first time that, oh, it's the will, it's not the degree of movement, it's not the speed of movement that matters. It is actually the will of the person. And a snail's path might get you to your targeted goal somewhere where, you know, maybe being on a super fast bike, case in point, two of them are not gonna do the job. Whereas here in the This Might Hurt Chariot, it's immediate. Again, she's in a very dominating, very powerful pose. She's got a wand in her hand. She's got a step on each bike. There's smoke billowing out from behind. There's the cityscape behind her. And here I see a direction to choose, which is something that I like having in the Chariot. So this is missing the direction, but it has the will over the determination and the will over the speed, whereas this definitely gives me a sense of go ahead right now, like this is your moment, seize the day. So there is a difference in tempo in these two Chariot cards for me. The next card on the list is Strength. So first, with the Mystical Moments, it's very interesting where here the woman is sort of got cat ears, she's got a tail, and the lion looks almost morose. I don't know why, he looks a bit sad to me. But this is where, for me, this is again, there's a softness to the strength. Strength for me over time became from fortitude. It started as fortitude and it evolved into something that was much more of acknowledging, having the fortitude not just to endure and push on, but having the fortitude to acknowledge your flaws, the different facets of who you are, and still embracing that because it makes you whole. And I see that in this Strength card. Whereas in this Strength card, again, I see there is a certain, because of the tenderness of her face, I see the love that side of you demands. When you open that door to your shadow or to your very, very vulnerable side, it demands a certain amount of gentleness and lack of judgment, and I see that in this card. So these two are similar for me. Then you come to the Hermit. Now this Hermit for me is very interesting. She is alone, but I see an isolation to her. I see she's got a perspective that no one else has, and you know, it gives me the vibe of it can be quite lonely at the top. Whereas this Hermit is definitely, her feet are on the ground. She's got a support staff. She is on a pilgrimage. I see that. She has a lantern. She has her staff. She is dressed for the weather. You know, she's got this. She's on a journey of self-discovery. Whereas this Hermit might be a little, I guess I see it more in shadow, which I didn't realize until now. But in the vastness of the world below, I see her far above. She is neither close to the birds nor close to the ships. She's just somewhere in that liminal space in the middle, and nobody's there with her, which is the sense of isolation that I get from that card. The next one is the Wheel of Fortune. Now, the Wheel of Fortune in this card is like what I imagine the inside of a clockwork mechanism looks like. A lot of gears that turn each gear, and all of them turn together, and they turn her clockwork heart. So there's a very strong sense of, and she's holding a pocket watch. Now for me, the Wheel of Fortune is change. It could be good, it could be bad. It's neutral, it's change. For me, tarot is value neutral. It doesn't tell you things are good or bad. It tells you they are. And then you sort of take it from there. So for me, the sense of time here is very at the forefront of my mind when I look at her. Whereas in this, the Wheel of Fortune feels more esoteric. You have a snake, you have a sphinx, you know, you have the 4 elements and the corresponding depictions of what they mean. This is much more Rider-Waite-Smith. Somebody is at the top of the wheel, somebody's going down the wheel, somebody's always coming up the wheel. So this is a very traditional cycles, seasons, all the 4 elements, change as it comes, but there is no pressure of time. And in this card, I see time. So that's the difference between these two. Now we're at Justice. And here, again, Justice sits with a huge sword at the top of this building in this beautiful gown with scales, you know. So this is accountability, but the perspective of this accountability is from a very zoomed out lens. This also looks as accountability very differently. She is in modern clothes, she's got her scales, she's giving you the side eye. But what I love is that her sword has been dinged up. So she's done this before. There is experience. This is someone who is not got like a brand new spanking shiny sword. She has something that's chipped and damaged, and it's been through stuff. It's held itself accountable before. It's done the cutting when the cutting needed to be done. So this talks to me of much more experience, and this talks to me of accountability that is higher than personal accountability, if that makes sense. Then the next card is a Hangman, and I adore this Hangman card. This Hangman she's in lushness, but she is unzipping a completely new world, clear blue skies. You imagine a beautiful sunny day, maybe imagine the beach, right? Whereas this hangman is very traditionally in Marseille style, hanging from 2 trees, a rope around his ankle. The interesting thing is I love the bird on his knee, and you can see the enlightenment halo around his head, and he looks relaxed, whereas she looks like, her hands are over her heart. She is ready to open up to this new experience, but she's more hesitant in her approach, where he looks like he's like chest out, shoulders back, he's ready to take this on, whereas she has a much softer approach. And then you have death. This is one of my favorite death cards. It is the absolute peace that is on her face. She is looking towards the butterfly. There are huge lilies growing out of her. She is transformation as it happens. To me, this card speaks of inner transformation, whereas the more traditional death card from This Might Hurt speaks of endings and grappling with endings and how to. There is a certain, over time, how my relationship with death has evolved is that there is a certain requirement that you embrace the change. The harder you fight, the worse it is. So here, the change is very much in your face. You grieve what was lost, you move on, you accept change. But here it's so organic. It's happened from within. The growth was happening before you realized. And then one fine day you just bloomed and everything was different. That's what this card reads like to me. Then we have Temperance. This Temperance card talks to me about being in a liminal space between rest and flight, and she's also sheltered, and her gown is so ephemeral. It's like she could just become translucent slowly and disappear. That's the feeling I get. And whereas this Temperance, you definitely have the mixing of fire and water. You have the alchemical process. You have the mixed fire and water going down. You have his 1 foot in water, 1 foot on land. You see the mark on his chest. You see the red wings. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith. You see the alchemy of it. You see the balancing of polarities. You see, but here you see the ephemerality of it as well. That we have to find an equilibrium between polarities, but that equilibrium is also fleeting. Because if change is the only constant, having a constant equilibrium would also be stagnating. So the temporality of that equilibrium is something I see in this card. Then you come to the Devil. The Devil is a spider on what looks to be a mushroom. I could be totally getting that wrong. Please correct me if I am. But there's an invitation. Like her red clothing, her dark hair. You almost, if you look for a flash, you could miss the spider legs. And the way she's looking, there's an invitation there. Would you like to see the world as I see the world? There's a question there. Whereas this Devil is clearly talking about the minds of excesses. I mean, this is a very didactic Devil. There is the excess of pleasure, the excess of everything. This Devil comes up to you at a teaching moment. This Devil asks you to explore within. It's softer, but it's no less serious. Then we come to the Tower. Again, one of my favorite cards. It depicts to me so beautifully the love we can have for something even while knowing that it is not good for us. The way she's hugging the crumbling tower, the way her hair is turning into smoke. She knows, but she's just not ready yet. And that's okay too. So this is one of the more emotional Tower cards, I would say. It brings out the sense of emotion in me, of that sometimes when the tower is coming down, you hold on to it a little bit. It's not going to stop it from coming down. Whereas this my third tower, lightning, explosion, figures falling down, change, stuff, as the situation is crumbling, you have to pick up the pieces. This is the pull your socks up card. This is the it's happening, pull your socks up. This I would read with a more compassionate tone. And I think we can see a trend sort of building here, and we're back. So coming to the Star card. It's very wistful. I would say it's wistful. Whereas this star is the more traditional, the pouring of water. Again, I'm not sure with YouTube and nudity, so I'm gonna hide that. But yeah, it's very there is more hope, there's healing in that card. Like, I imagine the cathartic effect of, just standing and having water being poured down you. It's like cleansing almost. And there's a hint to navigation with her star specifically. Whereas here I see a wistful dream, a wish, a hope. Then we have the Moon card, which is my significator card. Because I was born on 18th and I am a Pisces, so the Moon is my card. And this is a very interesting deck. I almost see myself, that could be me from behind with the hair minus the creature out from the deep. Here again, I look at someone who is so the Moon was a card that I struggled with for a while, because I have a very positive relationship with the Moon. The Moon, I live in a place which gets really, really hot in the summer. And the evenings when the moon is rising is the time that I want to be out. I want to be looking at the moon. I could look at detailed pictures of the moon like all day long. So for me, the moon as illusionary makes sense. I think I follow that meaning to keep the balance of the deck, but if I were to, I would switch it with the sun, as sun being something very glaringly hot, but that's also not how I experience the sun all the time, because the sun being out does make me happy and dreary weather does make me sad. So yeah, there we are. Back to the Moon. Again, there's a sense of quiet stillness to this card, where she is sitting with the wolf howl, sitting with the creatures, and she's completely at peace. She's not afraid. There is a lack of fear to this card. Whereas here, for me, it's completely different. It is about how much of your unfiltered self are you willing to let out in the moonlight. And you have the path, and you have the crayfish / lobster. So it's how much of your unfiltered self are you willing to share, maybe, with yourself, with somebody else? That's the question that this card brings to mind. Then we have the Sun. And this is one of my favorite sun cards. Just the fact that she's flawed and the fact that there's a shadow. There is no light which casts no shadows. And the fact that there's a shadow, even in the beauty of the sun, even in the bliss of the sun, just makes this card so real for me. Whereas here you have the traditional naked baby on the dog instead of a horse, and you have a little dog with a stick. So this is all about playfulness and joy and, you know, authenticity and just living life in the biggest, baddest, best way that you can. Like, this is taking up maximum space. Whereas this reminds me of the shadows cast by light and how one cannot be without the other. If there's no light, there'll be no shadows. If there's light, there's always be shadows. So these are the very two different meanings I get from these cards. Then we have Judgment. So the Judgment from Mystical Moments is very much focused on the call. The trumpet is the call, and the angelic figure is the one doing the invite or a call. Whereas the Judgment, now this deviates from Rider-Waite-Smith. It depicts the Egyptian god Ma'at, who is weighing the souls of the dead, and then they are ascending. So this is very much the Judgment Day judgment. And this is very much an invite to evolve. The evolution here is clearly spiritual. The evolution here is a softer invite. And then we come to the final card, which is the World. And here, so now I didn't really vibe with this World card. I can see the sense of accomplishment, but it doesn't give me the fact that you're one round up the spiral of learning. You know, if learning was a spiral staircase, the fact that you've done one spiral round is not quite apparent. And plus, if you see, she is very different from, like, if you see the Fool card and the World card side by side, the journey's taken you to a completely different place. Whereas in the World card you see the typical Rider-Waite-Smith symbology of all the four pentacles. You see the Ouroboros, you see a woman, you see the wands in her hand. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith. The position of her legs, the way she's stepping in, the way her hair is billowing. There is freedom, there is acceptance, there is body acceptance in this. And that's the World. So I am happy to do this for the whole deck. If that's something you're interested in, let me know if this was helpful and not too rambly, because I am new at this, obviously, but my videos are also unscripted. So if you found this helpful and you want to do more of it, please let me know. I will be happy to go through the rest of the deck as well. And if you want more ideas like this, I would be interested in challenging myself, not channeling. Maybe I'm channeling to do this with the Chikoli Tarot. That would be fun for me. I hope you have a lovely day. See you.